anymore, put your hands together for a warm Texas welcome to Michael Madsen.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's quite a, I don't know how to follow that up. I'm having a good time now. Thank you for having me here.
So, Michael, what was the initial spark for you to pursue acting?
Unemployment. And career criminal. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in jail, so I did a lot of things. So I was an auto mechanic, and I drove a tow truck for a couple of years, and I worked in car wash, and actually went to school to be a paramedic. So my dad wanted me to do that, and I was an orderly in a hospital. That's the closest I got to the paramedic thing, and I was a pipe fitter. I cut pipe threads. Worked for landscapers, and I tried to start my own house painting business for a while. That was a total loss. And I tried to do a lot of stuff, and nothing ever worked out. And I kind of stumbled into film acting, and it's a good thing. I found something to do with myself.
Didn't have it. Your sister Virginia is also in the business, and she broke in right around the same time as you. Did one inspire the other?
Well, actually, she was doing it way before I was. She was doing a lot of theater and high school theater, and she was in acting classes, and she had Marilyn Monroe posters up on the wall in her room, and she was really the actor in the family. My mother had a drama scholarship when she was in college, but she had kids, started having children, never pursued it. And Virginia was doing it way before I was. But I kind of, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but I was with a friend of mine who was going to school with me, the paramedic thing. And he was going to an audition. And I went with him, because he said there was going to be a lot of girls there. Anyway, I watched him go up to the table and sit down. It was kind of like this almost. A lot of people there. They were calling these actors up to read for these directors from LA. And I watched how he went down there and got blown off and dismissed, and I felt kind of bad for him. I was waiting for him, and when he was done, we were leaving together. And this one guy actually, he said, "How come you're leaving?" And I said, "Well, because I'm leaving." And he said, "Well, what? How come you didn't read?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really come here for that." And he said, "Well, would you like to?" And I said, "Listen, man, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm not going to that table. And I don't want to sit down in front of all these people and read nothing." And I said, I don't want to make a fool out of myself. And he said, "Well, we can go in the back room and do it over here." And then I was like, "Whoa! Wait a second, man. I heard about you and all the good people. I'm not going in the back room with you." But my friend, meanwhile, looking at me like he wanted to kill me. And I didn't realize, the ego thing. But anyway, I read for the guy, and they ended up, I got 2 lines in a little film, and I went to California, and I got a job pumping gas in Beverly Hills, and I started auditioning for episodic television. That's when everything started.
Well, at what points, because I read that you actually trained under John Malkovich?
Well, I went to Steppenwolf acting. The Steppenwolf Theater Company, nobody knew any of those guys then. They were just like a basement theater company. Gary Sinise and John Malkovich and them. And I tried to do scene study with them. And that's when I met John. And, there's a lot made out of me knowing him and all this, but the truth is we didn't really I didn't really do that much when I was over there. I got kind of bored with it, and I was really impatient, and I just wanted to kind of get on with it. But yeah, he was a guy that I early on, you know, watched him on stage, and I could kind of figure out what he was doing. You know, to actually see somebody doing it live in front of you, it kind of made it seem a little less mysterious. And he's a good guy too. He was a good cat. You know, we ended up never making a picture together, but I don't know, someday maybe.
Well, I mean, your career really started to catch fire. You were doing a lot of episodic television in the 80s, and then in the 90s it started to catch fire, and then, I mean, it blew up with Reservoir Dogs. How did it come about that you were casted as Mr. Blonde?
The truth is, I wanted to play Mr. Pink. Because he gets away with the diamonds, you know? He gets away at the end. I didn't want to get shot. I didn't want to get blown up by Mr. Orange. And I wanted to be the guy who gets away. But Quentin was very adamant that I play Mr. Blonde. And it went as far as I conned him into letting me audition for Mr. Pink, even though I was already in the movie as Mr. Blonde, right? And I just wouldn't let it die, and he just kept saying, okay, fine. So I studied all Mr. Pink's dialogue, and I went in and I read for Quentin. And he's like, yeah, that was great, but no. I was really kind of crushed, and I was like, oh man, this is my big chance. Anyway, the producer called me a couple hours later after I got home and said, listen, Michael, are you in this film or not? Because everyone else is already cast, and you're the only one left, and we're tired of waiting for you, so what are you going to do? Make up your mind. I said, okay, fine. Okay, I'll be Mr. Blonde. And I had no idea it was going to turn into the movie that it was. Everybody told me not to do it because Quentin was a first-time director. Yeah. And I guess the reason that finally I decided that I did it was because of Harvey Keitel. I had been in Thelma and Louise, and all of my scenes with Harvey got cut out of the movie. And I had such a good working relationship with him that when I heard he was going to play Mr. White, I really wanted to see him and work with him. It was a big reason for me doing it. And he, of course, having Harvey in the movie is how they got the financing. They never would have got the dough without him. And, because, I mean, let's face it, the rest of us, nobody heard of us. But it turned out to be, I guess, talking about it now, so I don't think any of us really realized that we were making a movie that was going to be remembered.
Did you, at least after you were shooting it or during, did you realize that, okay, even Quentin, I mean, he was a first-time director, but did you have a sense, I'm really working with a talent here?
Well, you know, he is a big talent. He's a genius, and he's a very quirky cat, but he has a certain understanding of things and violent things, and he has a take on things that is quite different from anybody else that I've known, that I've ever made those kind of films with. And everybody copies it now, they try to copy it, and unsuccessfully. There's something about the way that he'll set up a shot, or something that he'll say to you, a certain phrase. And we never really talked that much. It was almost like he had like a symbiotic understanding of each other. I can't really say what it is, but he would know what I was going to do before I did it. And a lot of times I made up stuff. I made up a lot of stuff. Every time I've ever worked for him, I always made up stuff. And he lets me do it. And I've had a few suggestions that he didn't go along with, but most of the time he really, it's a real collaboration to work with him. And I guess I couldn't honestly say that there was ever a moment that any of us ever knew that we were making a picture that was going to last that long or be that good. We were just trying to be cool. You know, everyone wanted to be like Harvey, because you know, he was the taxi driver and Mean Streets and all that. And we just wanted to be cool gangsters with Harvey, and I wasn't really paying that much attention to what I was doing. Basically, I was just, I made up a lot of stuff. I had lived a lot of that stuff, because in the script it just said Mr. Blonde maniacally dances around the manacled cop. And, you know, what the hell are you going to do with that? You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't want to rehearse it. We never rehearsed it because I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm good when I get back into a corner and I just kind of, I say, look man, just shoot it. You know, if you set up your machines, let's just shoot it. And I'll do what I'm going to do when you're shooting. But I don't want to do it now. And he was brave enough to just let me do my own thing. And then when you put up a spot, well then you got to do something. And so then I tried to make it menacing.
Right, and I've also heard that was a pretty tough scene for you, because that's the torture scene where he cuts the cop's ear off. Because you're not really a violent man yourself. You actually have kind of a bit of a heart.
Yeah, a little bit.
You have more violence, right? So, but I mean, that scene was so pivotal because you've since played so many morally ambiguous characters, and that's something that you do very well. You know, we as an audience believe you that you're capable of things that you don't even need to see necessarily. We just buy that you're capable of doing them, and there's this sort of rippling sense of danger about a lot of the characters you have. And I'm wondering, as an actor, you know, considering that you don't like violence, what do you draw from to kind of portray that?
A nefarious childhood, I would guess. Right. I just try to do my job. I try to breathe some life into what's on the page. And I mean, I'm being on the subject of Quentin. I'm just saying that he, you know, when I cut off the ear and I had the damn thing in my hand, you know, he was standing off behind the camera and he was saying, throw it, toss it, Michael, toss it. But if you watch the movie, you can see the look on my face because I'm looking at the ear. And I was hearing him, you know, telling me to throw it. But I didn't really want to throw it. I was thinking about it, and I was looking at it, and I was thinking, what would you do if you had an ear in your hand? And, I was just, and so, you know, I said, hey, and I started speaking into the ear. I thought it was just, you know, to make the cop more crazy and angry at me for doing what I did. It was like a taunting kind of a thing. And I thought it was perfectly natural. And then it just occurred to me that that's what someone might do. You know, if they did what I was doing. And so then after that, then I threw it. And 3 days later, Quentin comes up to me and he goes, hey Michael, remember when you were like talking in the ear? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, we're gonna keep it in the movie. You know, and it never really occurred to me that it wasn't going to be in the movie. Oh, well, thanks, Quentin, you know, for taking the credit for something you didn't write. But he got me back when we were doing Kill Bill. I had been in Mexico making a Western. And we had gone from Mexico City all the way through Chihuahua into Durango. And I bought that white Stetson in Durango. And I come back to Los Angeles, and we were doing the read-throughs for Kill Bill, and I started wearing that hat to the rehearsals. And Quentin comes up to me and he goes, you're not going to wear that hat in the movie. And I said, yeah, no, I am. And he goes, no, you're not going to wear the hat. And I said, well, he goes, I know why you're wearing it every day, because you think you're wearing it in the movie. And I go, well, I said, it hasn't really occurred to me, but yeah, I was kind of thinking I would. I said, you know, I'm living in my trailer and I work at a strip club, and you know, I did all this samurai training and all these things, and I said, listen, man, you know, I should, I like the damn thing, I'm going to wear it. And a couple days later, I was getting propped up. I was getting my razor blade necklace and some rings and things and trying out guns and stuff. And he comes up behind me and he goes, So Michael, I can't now picture you without the hat. So you can wear it. You can wear the hat in the movie. And I said, okay, all right. So, but then we shot all the stuff in the graveyard, which kind of really isolated me in the movie because I didn't want to start out with that because it was too heavy. I didn't know where to go from that. But we started with that in the hat. And then the day that we were going to shoot the strip club, he comes to my trailer and he gives me these signs that he had just written. And he goes, yeah, we're going to change up the scene a little bit. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I'll see you later. And I said, okay. And he closed the door and walks away. And I sit there and I read it. And it's, Larry tells Bud to take off his hat. And I was like, no, man. It's like, I had to do it then because it was in the script. And he knew it. That was the crazy genius of him. He really didn't want to wear the damn thing, so he wrote a scene where I had to take it off. And it was so humiliating to take it off because I really didn't want to. And Larry, of course, made the most of it because he knew I didn't want to do it either. But you can, when Bud has to take off his hat, he's really demoralized. And Michael Madsen, was demoralized. Because I'm not really that good of an actor, it was really more me. But it plays on the screen as Bud being demoralized. And it's a simple thing, but it's a true story. Gave Bud a moral center, I thought. I'm not sure Quentin counted on that happening, but it's a strange thing, even now when I watch it.
Well, you keep tremendously busy. I was blown away when I was researching this, how many film roles you have lined up for 2012, even alone, there's like 15 or something like that.
Well, a lot of that stuff is, you get on an elevator with somebody and they tell you that their brother-in-law wrote a screenplay and he wrote it for you, and you don't want to insult anybody and you don't want to be an asshole. I'd like to take a look at that, and 10 days later it's on the IMDb that it's in pre-production and it's starring me, And it's kind of, it's a little, you shouldn't really believe that, IMDb. They've been better lately because I started contacting them, but once upon a time, there was like a ridiculous amount of films on there that I was supposedly going to be in and had nothing to do with. I even went to a physical one time. I was getting a physical, and the doctor, he's like, I just happen to have this with me. And he looks at this, no, doctor, my God, no. And he goes, yeah, this is almost the story of my life, and I want you to do it. I was like, okay, man, the physical, and it's funny.
But, you've had an interesting career. You were the recent recipient of the 2012 Indie Icon Award in Vegas, which is self-reveal. So, you're a proponent of indie films, I guess.
Well, the thing is, you see, is that everybody told me not to do Reservoir Dogs. And it was a first-time director, and we had no money to make the movie. But look what happened.
Yeah.
So you really hesitate to say no or turn anybody down because you never know what it's going to be. Even the doctor, for God's sake. How did I know? It could be like something really good. And I've done a lot of pictures under the idea that something might turn out to be really good, and then once you make it, it doesn't turn out that way. There's a lot of clinkers that I've been in that I tried to do for the right reason, but they didn't really go that well. And a lot of it is beyond your control. The editing process and the casting of other actors and the way that they sell the picture, all that stuff is completely out of your control. And, it's really kind of, sometimes it ends badly.
Well, yeah, there's just so many hands in the pie that you do have a great movie. It's a movie special. We've had a number of them. So
I did a picture called Vice that never really got theatrically released. It came out on DVD. But I rewrote the beginning and I rewrote the ending and I cast it, and I had a lot to do with the production of it. And I know that when you watch it, it seems like a pretty simple, B-cop movie, which basically it is, but it's about redemption, and more than anything else, and I really had such a good time being involved in a much bigger contribution than just the acting part, Well, I wish I could do that more often.
Well, that was one of my later questions, actually, because I was wondering if you'd taken to writing screenplays, because something that a lot of people probably don't know about you is that you've actually had a number of poetry books published and photography book as well, and then you're a big fan of Charles Bukowski, who's one of my favorite writers, too, about the tough language.
Yeah, he was really good. I wish I would have met him.
Yeah, how did you become interested in those arts?
Boredom. Just, I started writing stuff. I mean, when you're making pictures, there's an awful lot of time spent on airplanes and, motel rooms, and you can get a little nuts if you don't have something to do. And I started writing stuff on bags and napkins and matchbooks or wherever I could find them. I was basically writing memories of growing up, and memories of my dad, and just things that happened to me when I was younger. And I never really intended it to be a book. I wasn't really intended being a writer, but I just finished Wyatt Earp, and I had moved up to Santa Fe, New Mexico to make the picture, and I was rented a house to live in when I was there. And I had all my stuff moved from LA to New Mexico because I was convinced that I was going to retire from acting and I was going to live in New Mexico, my God, and fuck Hollywood. And, I was done with that bunch and that was it. And obviously that didn't happen, but I was with a young lady at that time. And the house that I was in, it just had an adobe fireplace. And it was wintertime, man. It was really cold, and I kept chopping wood from outside the house and burning it up to heat up the house, and it was a big snow blizzard, and everything was frozen. And I had chopped everything around the house was already gone, and I didn't have nothing else. And this young lady was visiting me at the time. I took a box that I had with my stuff, and it was all the stuff I've been writing for a really long time. And I bring it over, and I was putting it in the fireplace. And she came over, and she picked up some of it, she started reading it, and she basically stopped me and told me it was ridiculous for me to do that, and that I should probably try to find a publisher, and she helped me do that, and I eventually got somebody. That was how the book thing started. And I didn't really think anybody was going to be that interested in it, but then looking back on it, I realized I was really happy that I had written certain things because I was glad that I put it down, and I kept doing it. Now I just finished another one. I got one that's coming out in September.
Great, that's awesome. Do you have any pet projects, other than Vice, or a role that you feel like you were born to play?
I always wanted to play Pretty Boy Floyd, the bank robber, back in the Dillinger days. But I'm too old for it now. It's he was only 32 when he was killed, and I might be able to get away with it, but not much longer. The other stuff that I wanted to do, I thought I would have made a great Batman, but that ain't never gonna happen. So I'm just kind of a gun for hire these days. And, I got 5 boys, I have 5 kids, and I put them in a certain lifestyle that I would like them to stay in, and I'd like to stay in. And the thing is that the only way to do that is just keep working. And so I'm more busy trying to find a job than I am to create one,
Frank Miller actually has a series of graphic novels where Batman's older, and you would be amazing for those, actually.
Well, Frank is Frank's a strange bird. I did Sin City with him, and he kind of changed real fast. He was completely unknown, and then when the Sin City thing happened, he kind of changed. It's hard to explain, but oh, there she is. From Sin City, ladies and gentlemen.
Patricia Vaughn.
But the older Batman thing is a great idea. I mean, if, it's all about the economics of everything. Unfortunately, it comes down to that. It's whether or not something makes any money or not. Unfortunately, that's what it all comes down to. If a picture is successful, then most likely there'll be a sequel, and if it isn't, there ain't going to be no part two. And it's all about the revenue of the whole thing. And I wish it wasn't like that, but it is like that. And a lot of really good films get forgotten or ignored because they don't make a certain amount of money. There are other things that make a ton of cash that aren't very good, and it gets kicked down everybody's throats for 10 years, and no one really wants to see it. It's kind of a mystery to me, the whole business end of stuff, but it is a business after all, and that's one thing that I never really paid that much attention to in the beginning. I have a much better understanding of that now, and I realize that a lot of people are investment oriented, and it's not so much about the story anymore.
Well, speaking of sequels and of Frank and everything, what's going on with Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, the second one? And are you gonna reprise your role as Bob?
Well, I'd really like to do that, and I'm rumored to be doing it, as they say, but I certainly hope so. Robert's a wonderful guy, and obviously I'd like to make a contribution to the picture, but like I say, I'm rumored to be involved in it, and I hope that works out, but there's a lot of politics involved, and a lot of considerations that get made about these kind of things. And sometimes you don't really know who's really going to pull the trigger in certain areas, and you just have to wait and see what happens. I mean, Robert's busy right now, he's shooting another picture, and you just kind of have to wait till he's finished to find out, but I'm pretty sure, that it'll work out. I hope it does.
I know you're a real big fan of tough guy movies and stuff like that, and you've worked with so many other iconic actors, McNulty, Al Pacino, Lawrence Tierney, Bruce Willis, David Carradine. Who out of everyone that you've worked with had the most impact on you?
David Carradine, for sure. He was really philosophical guy and very dangerous. David was like the real deal. I mean, he really was. We became very, very close, and I really counted on his advice about a lot of things over time. He always had something positive or interesting to say about whatever dilemma that I might be in. And I needed some advice on, and I'm really sorry. Sad that he's not around anymore. He had an interesting life, though. Great actor. Yeah, I've worked with some big shots, that's for sure, but David's got the first prize in that, man.
As a fan of tough guy movies, do you have any lesser known ones that you suggest to people? Sort of really lesser known favorites?
Well, I thought the original Cape Fear was really good. Robert mentioned. Yeah,
clap for that one.
Very good. I like all the old Humphrey Bogart pictures, and I was a big Robert Mitchum fan. He was mischievous, and he had a great face. I like Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster, and all those guys from back then. Lee Marvin was. Quentin has that kind of. I think Robert also, they have a great respect for the old days of movies, and like to pay homage to them in different ways. And I copy a lot of stuff from the old guys, and there's really not that kind of film acting isn't that common anymore. It's all become a soap opera, and it's all kind of one note. And it's, I get all my inspiration from the older pictures. There's a film Jimmy Cagney made, called Angels with Dirty Faces, and with the Bowery Boys. There's that guy, and he was, there's that guy from the elevator. He was, he played this character named Rocky Sullivan, and he goes to the electric chair at the end of the movie. And he's kind of a gangster, he's a bad guy. And all the neighborhood kids think that he's super cool because he's a tough guy. In the end of the movie, he goes in the electric chair, and the priest comes to see him. Pat O'Brien, the actor, is playing priest, and he goes to see him. And he tells him to turn yellow and to be scared and to turn chicken on the chair when he's going to get barbecued. And he says, do it for the boys, you know. Let them think that you don't want to die and you're scared to death that this is going to happen to you. And do it for them because they idolize you. But I don't want them to idolize you because you're bad. And so there's a long scene of Cagney walking down the hall. And he punches one of the guards and he's spitting at people's faces. And, you know, you're just like, oh man, what's going to happen? And, you know, he sits down and you just see a shadow on the wall and he starts wailing, just this mournful wail of, oh my God, please don't kill me, I don't want to die, oh please, don't kill me. It's just like, oh my God, it's really, really, I can't ever say that I've ever seen another actor in this world ever compare to that. And all of a sudden it just stops. And I think what they did is they probably cut the sound in the middle of one of his wails so that it was so instant. But you're left with this question of, was he honestly and truly scared? Or was he honestly and truly afraid? Or did he just pretend to do that for the boys, you know, so they wouldn't have to grow up like him? And I went to the library and I got a biography of James Cagney, just for that reason, and I read it. And sure enough, the question came up and they asked him, you know, as an actor, you know, what do you think? And he said, you know what, it's a question I'm never going to answer. And you know, that's the way it should be.
I just got one more question and we'll turn it over to the audience because I know they're dying to ask you some questions. In 2007, you started in a mockumentary called Being Michael Madsen. That was kind of a revenge film, sort of like where you kind of turned tables on the paparazzi. Yeah. How did that come about, and do you have problems in your life with paparazzi?
You know, I did that picture as a favor to some guys. They really wanted to do it, and they wanted me to do it, and I agreed to do it. And then later on, when it came time to do it, I was actually contracted to do another movie. And I honestly and truly didn't want to do it, to be honest with you. But there was some good people got involved in it, and some of my friends and my sister even. And you know, they shot an interesting film. I had a lot of problems with it, the final version of it. But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't really matter anymore. But at the time, I just didn't think it was right to leave them hanging after I had said that I would do it. But I'm not really that fond of it.
I actually worked on a film once that your sister was in, and she hired an ice cream truck to come for the crew one day. So I always tell everybody that Virginia Madsen brought me an ice cream. Okay, so she gets some questions to me now. Split your hands on me an ice cream cone. Yes, sir, right here in front.
Do you have any recollections of the filming of Species and the sequel, and how did you get involved with that particular film?
Well, I did a picture called The Getaway with Roger Donaldson, and I was playing an extremely disturbed individual. Rudy, yeah. And it was a remake of a Sam Peckinpah film. And Al Lettieri from The Godfather was the original Rudy in the original Getaway, and he was really good in the movie. And I felt an obligation to be at least as good as him. And I even imitated some of the stuff that he did in the original. But, and Jennifer made up the thing with the cat, and the guy hanging himself. That was her idea. But when I was doing that with him, I kept saying to him every day that I was really getting tired of playing villains and that I really didn't want to be stereotyped. And it was the only kind of parts I was getting offered. I really wanted to kind of be a hero and play the good guy. And so when he got the Species together, he rang me up and he said, "You want to play Preston, you know, this CIA guy?" And I said, "Well, hell yeah," you know. But he had a lot of trouble convincing the studio to let me do that because they were happy to keep me in the corner with a gun and a cigarette, you know. And I have to give it to Roger because he really stood up for me and made sure that they, you know, used me in that film. And it was one of the only times I got to play, you know, a somewhat heroic character. Of course, then they put Ben Kingsley in there, and Ben had won an Academy Award, and so he wasn't going to take second billing to Michael Madsen, right? Sir Ben, that he is now. He hates me because I refuse to call him Sir Ben. So when they did the billing of species, you know, it says Ben Kingsley first, and then it says in alphabetical order, but it isn't really in alphabetical order at all. But I didn't get the top billing above the title like the lead of a picture normally would because of Ben's status. And but still, it was a great experience. And you know, Roger is a tremendously gifted director. We worked very well together, and he's a family man like me. So.
Yes, sir.
How was it working with Ridley Scott?
You know, I just can't figure out why I never did it again. I mean, I really liked him. And remember I said that I had worked with Harvey, and all my scenes in that picture with Harvey got cut out. But Ridley had let me and him make it up. We improv a bunch of stuff in the precinct because when I'm in the coffee shop with Susan, you know, I tell her that I promise her that I'm not going to tell the police where they are. And then later there's a scene where Harvey comes to my house and arrests me. And then I'm actually in the precinct answering questions, and I'm not going to tell them where the girls are like I promised. And all that stuff was cut out of the movie, and for plot reasons and time and stuff like that. But I liked Ridley a lot. He was really super cool, and he was laid back, and he kind of, like the scene with Susan and me in the room, we pretty much made up that whole thing. I thought that Jimmy should get a little irritated, and she was kind of turned down his marriage proposal, and so it was my idea to flip the table. But he went along with it. And he's a gentle man. I liked working with him a lot. I was kind of disappointed in Robin Hood. I thought it was preposterous, actually. But, I don't know. Maybe he'll call me one of these days. You know, he wanted me to do Black Hawk Down. And I was in New York. I was doing a television series called The Big Apple. And I was contracted for like 13 episodes of that damn thing. And I couldn't get out of it to go to Black Hawk. And I kind of think that might have been the last time I heard from Ridley. I don't know if he thought I should quit the show to go to Morocco and make Black Hawk. I kind of wish that I would have. But it's not that easy to get out of a contract.
Yes, sir, over there.
I'm a big fan of Red Line. Can you talk about that?
Talk about Red Line.
I did that picture with Chad McQueen. He is Steve McQueen's son. He used to live right next door to me in Malibu, and we were good pals. And he wanted to be an actor like his father, and I was bankable back in those days. And I did that picture for Chad so he could help raise the money to make it. And it's funny because it's a little film, right? But it's been around for a long time. A lot of people like that movie. Don't I slap Corey Haim in the face? Corey Feldman, yeah, cracked in the face.
How can you got the mixed up?
Yeah, the two Corys, yeah. Well, we did it kind of the same. They're both irritating. I think I hit him with a banana in the face, with a banana peel. Yeah, I think that happened for real, because he just was yammering away. I whacked him in the face with a banana.
Story on Reservoir Dogs, the actor that played the police officer, when you first see him in the movie, he's pulled from a trunk, you pull him out of a trunk. So before that, he approached you wanted to know what it felt like being in a trunk. And you helped him out in some way?
Well, it's a true story. I was sleeping on the floor in the production office, and he came in there and he said, Michael, you know, I had never really been locked in the trunk before, and you know, I want to be really good in this movie. And he goes, I know this might sound ridiculous, but you know, would you ever consider, you know, locking me in your trunk? You know, so I just want to know how it feels. Because that was my car, the Cadillac was my car. And I had driven it to work that day, obviously it was in the parking lot. And it had already been determined that we were going to use my car in the movie. And so then he had this bright idea, and I at first thought he was insane, and then I suddenly realized that, you know, I myself could learn a lot about having a cop in my trunk, because I never did that, right? So I said, yeah, come on, man. And he went with me, and I put him in the trunk. And so then I said, I was knocked on the thing, I said, I'm gonna drive around a little bit. And he's like, what? I'm gonna drive around a little bit. He's like, no! So I started the car and I drove down the alley. And when I was driving away, I remember Quentin came running out of the warehouse, and Lawrence Baker came running out of the warehouse. And I looked in the rearview mirror and I seen everybody come outside, and everybody was waving their arms. No! And I drove down this long alley. There was these big pit holes and big cars and bouncing all over the place. And I could hear him back there. He's like, oh my God, let me out. And I turned on the radio, you know. I was really having a good time. But I was learning, you know. I was studying my craft, you see. It wasn't really like to have someone like that. And actually, I went down this alley that was so long that when I came out of it, it was a one-way street. And so I'm not going to break the law, and I went took a left, and when I came out of the big street, there was a Taco Bell. And, you know, so I went in, I went through the Taco Bell. And he was getting pretty angry at that point. And I just got a Coke. And then I pulled out, and I went back on the main street, back to the warehouse. When I pulled in, everybody was in the parking lot, like, oh my God! You know, is he really in there? And I was like, yeah, he really is. And I pulled up and I got out, I opened up the trunk, and by God, he was, you know, I forgot that I had a lot of stuff in the trunk. There's a big box of tools and, you know, some other stuff in there, and I felt really bad for him. And he was in the cop outfit, and he was all sweaty, and he got clumped around a little bit, and he was not very happy, and I helped him get out of the car. And so we both learned something that day, but but that's why I have the Coke when I'm leaning against the pole, because I actually really did have a Coke. And we went in to rehearse that scene in the beginning, and I was leaning on the pole with the damn thing, and I had my cups at Taco Bell. And so Quentin says, oh no, we gotta do that. That's a great idea. And he goes, but I had to get a different cup. I had to get one that was not a Taco Bell cup. That's why I have a Coke.
Yes, sir.
Are there any scenes from Kill Bill 1 or 2 that were not used in the movie that you were in?
Are there any scenes from Kill Bill 1 and 2 that were not used in the movie that you were in?
All I know is that Quentin was only supposed to be shooting in Beijing for 2 weeks. And when he got over there, he was there for like 5 weeks. And he kept, you know, Miramax and the Weinstein brothers were looking at all this footage that he was sending back, and I don't think that anybody wanted to stop him because everything was looking so good. And by the time that he was having fun, but by the time we got up to doing my stuff here on Bakersfield, there was already like 4 hours worth of movie. And they didn't really know what to do with that because nobody wanted to chop any of it up. And so that's why it came out in 2 volumes, because it was, long enough to be 3 movies, really. But that's why it was in 2 parts. When I was shooting that stuff in the trailer, he actually came up to me on that day and he said, can you believe it? They're talking about making this in 2 volumes. I go, it's ridiculous. And I was like, yeah, man, it's ridiculous. That's exactly what they ended up doing. But I didn't hear of any stuff that wasn't used, no.
Yes.
You talked about working with John Malkovich and the Steppenwolf, and I was just wondering if you had any interest in doing any live theater, or as opposed to film, kind of going forward.
Any interest in live theater?
Well, I just be honest with you. I can't pay the bills like that.
Yes.
Were there any roles that you were offered that you turned down and regretted, or any roles that you took that you went, crap, I really should have done that?
There's a bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have done. Seemed like a good idea at the time. There's a big rumor that's been going around for years about my turning down Pulp Fiction. But the real truth of it is that I was already contracted to do Wyatt Earp. And I'd already said yes to Larry Kasdan. I really wanted to play Doc Holliday. And I had taken a meeting with Larry right in the middle of shooting The Getaway. Actually flew back to LA for Father's Day. And I went to see Larry Kasdan. And I begged him to let me play Doc Holliday. And he explained to me that he already had Dennis Quaid. And the best that I was going to get was Virgil, Wyatt's brother. And I wanted to walk down the street to the OK Corral. I really did. It was Western history, I wanted to be a cowboy in a cowboy movie, and I couldn't get out of it. And that's the real truth, is why I didn't do Pulp Fiction. I never would have walked away from something like that. I just couldn't do it. I tried to get Larry to let me out of the rehearsals because he's insisting that, we have these 2 weeks of read-throughs on that thing. Why, I still to this day don't know. It was just an exercise in nothingness. And I might have been able to do both pictures if he would have let me out, but he just wouldn't. And anyway, just to set the record straight, that's what really happened.
Then I've heard online rumors, I don't know if there's any truth to it whatsoever, but that there was possibly a film project in the future that Mike was going to do to link up Vincent and Vic, his brothers.
Yeah, he was going to do this thing called the Vega Brothers, which would be me and Johnny. But the thing is that he could never figure out, originally it was supposed to be like a prequel to Reservoir Dogs. It would have to be events that happened before the 2 of us was dead. Because I get killed in that thing, and John gets killed in the other one. And so how in the name of God are we supposed to be alive again? Unless it was a prequel. Which now it can't be, because me and him was both too old. So the last thing he ever said to me about that was that he would make it that we were twin brothers of the Vega brothers. And we were coming back to avenge the deaths of our brothers. And we become owners of a nightclub in Amsterdam. And kill a lot of people. And he had been to Mexico before that. He was explaining it to me, so I'm not sure if he was altogether sure about it.
All right, we got time for just one last question, so let's get a good one here. Who's got a good question?
That guy from the elevator.
I said, what was your experience working with Dennis Hopper and Hellride?
What was it like working with Dennis Hopper?
Dennis is a dear, dear friend of mine, and I miss him so very much. And that was the last thing that we did together. And he was a genius of a man and a great, great actor. And he was a very wise fellow. And like David, I used to get a lot of advice from Dennis. And I'll tell you, when we were doing Hellride, I was really frustrated with a bunch of things that were going on in my life. And I was very unenamored of film acting, and I was having one of those days, like everyone has when they don't like their job. And I went to Dennis and I said, you know, man, I go, I really don't like this shit, you know. I said, it's so stupid. I wish I had done something else with my life. And he goes, well, man, he goes, what would you have done, man? And I said, well, I don't know, maybe I would be a carpenter. And he goes, look what happened to him, man. What do you guys think of that so fast? It was just crazy. That's a great question, man. I love Dennis, and I really miss him very much.
What's the title of your new book that's coming out, the poetry book?
It's called Expecting Rain.
All right, watch for that. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Madsen.